Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are doing great. Happy Saturday. Here with the college football picks. Going to be covering the top 25, and then I'll throw in a couple games that are pretty good outside of the top 25. And we're going to hop into it. A lot of action to cover. So go ahead and like and subscribe, guys. Support the channel. Almost at 6K subs. So go ahead and keep up the good work. And yeah, we'll hop into it here. And be sure to check out my college football parlay and teaser video whenever you guys are done watching this. All my favorite plays and teasers will be in it. Coming off a really great weekend last weekend, so hit pretty big on my teasers and big parlay. So be tuned, stay tuned for that. So yeah, we'll hop into it. First matchup, it's going to be Georgia versus Vanderbilt. Georgia opening up as 35-point favorites with the over-under at 54. You can't even find Georgia on the money line. If you do, they are going to be very expensive. So you can't really, if you could add them to your parlay and do a 12 to 16 team parlay, do it if it allows you to. But Georgia coming off a 40-13 win over South Carolina. Vanderbilt, coming off a 41-23 loss against Stanford. Keep it pretty simple. This Georgia defense is going to destroy Vanderbilt. 35 points may seem like a lot, but I think Georgia's just going to be able to beat up on this Vanderbilt team. It's hard to back Vanderbilt plus the points because you are going to be sweating the entire game, praying they cover literally in the fourth quarter. I'd much rather take Georgia here. They're just going to be so dominant, and they should be able to cover this spread here. Next matchup, we have the Notre Dame versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin opening up as 6.5-point favorites with the over-under at 45. You can get Wisconsin on the money line at minus 225. Notre Dame plus 205. Notre Dame coming off that 27-13 win over Purdue. Wisconsin, coming off that 34-7 win against Eastern Michigan. Didn't play last week. I guess their game was canceled, so they have had some time off here. Notre Dame 18-2 in their last 20. Been very well, playing very good here. Wisconsin 2-5 covering in their last 7 here. Look, I like Notre Dame plus the points here, plus 6.5. I'm gonna go ahead and buy a point on Notre Dame. Get them at plus 7.5. I think that's the better play. Should be a close battle between two ranked opponents here. I'm going to take Notre Dame plus 7.5 here. Next matchup, we have Villanova versus Penn State. Penn State opening up as 30.5-point favorites with the over-under at 54.5. Villanova coming off a 45-44 loss against Southeastern Louisiana. Penn State coming off that, very good matchup against Auburn, 28-20. Villanova 1-9 on the road. 1-9 in their last 10. Penn State's going to beat up on them. Penn State on a 7-game winning streak right now. 7-0 covering the spread. I know 30 points is a big spread, but this is a game for Penn State. They should be able to put up 40, 50, 60 points on this team here. Villanova's not going to be able to really score much on this Penn State defense. Give me Penn State plus the points, and if the money line's available, add Penn State to your money line parlay. The next matchup, we have Massachusetts versus Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina opening up as favorites. You can 36-point favorites with the over-under at 65.5. There isn't a money line. If it's available, add them to the parlay. UMass coming off a 42-28 loss against EMU, and then a 45-28 loss against Boston College. Coastal coming off that 28-25 win over Buffalo. UMass on a 10-game losing streak. 0-11 on the road. Coastal Carolina 9-0 at home. 15-1 in their last 16. 36 isn't a crazy number. I get it's a high spread, but it's another game. If you pick UMass plus the points, you're going to be sweating it till the very end. Coastal Carolina should be able to run it up on this UMass team. Give me Coastal Carolina minus the points. Next matchup, we have Clemson versus NC State. Clemson opening up as 10-point favorites with the over-under at 47.5. You can get Clemson on the money line at minus 370, NC State plus 310. Clemson coming off that very poor win against Georgia Tech, 14-8. They looked awful. very bad. NC State coming off a 45-7 win against Furman. Clemson 1-4 covering the spread in their last 5. Straight up though, they're 8-0 against NC State, 14-1 on the road. NC State, 5-0 at home right now, 4-1 covering in their last 5. This is, 10 points to NC State, a team that's better than that Georgia Tech team that they faced last week. I'm taking NC State plus 10. Clemson, they're just not the same team that we've seen the last few years. The quarterback play, not that good. Defense banged up. Give me NC State plus the points in this matchup. Next matchup, we have Colorado State versus Iowa. Iowa opening up as the favorite at minus 23.5 with the over-under at 44.5. Colorado State coming off that 22-6 win over Toledo. Then Iowa coming off a 30-7 win over Kent State. Colorado State, they've been struggling, 2-8 in their last 10. Iowa 9-0 in their last 9. 5-0 covering the spread in their last 5. Yeah, love Iowa here. Let's hope they can cover. Colorado State's not going to be able to score much on this Iowa team. Hope Iowa can score a little bit more here. Add Iowa to the moneyline parlay. They are minus 2,000. Go ahead and add them to the parlays, and we'll take Iowa minus the points. Next matchup, we have Iowa State versus Baylor. Iowa State opening up as 7-point favorites with the over-under at 47. You can get Iowa State on the money line at minus 255. Baylor plus 230. The last game for Iowa State beat UNLV 48-3. And then Baylor coming off that 45-7 win over Kansas. Iowa State 8-2 in their last 10. They have struggled against Baylor though, 1-5 on the road against Baylor. Baylor 11-4 at home. Only a 7-point spread. Buy that half a point, get them at minus 6.5. So if they win by 7, you get that profit instead of taking the better team here. I know Baylor's 3-0, but Iowa State's got a much better defense and should be able to run the ball in this Baylor team. Give me Iowa State money line and minus 6.5. Next matchup, we have Rutgers versus Michigan. Michigan opening up as 20.5-point favorites with the over-under at 50. You can get Michigan on the money line at minus 1,100. Rutgers plus 790. Rutgers coming off that 45-13 win over Delaware. Currently 3-0. They've actually been playing really good to start the season. Michigan coming off a 63-10 win over Northern Illinois. Then beat Washington 31-10. When these teams played last year, Michigan, it was a close game, 48-42. I think it's a much better Michigan team this season. Rutgers 0-6 against Michigan, but they are 6-0 covering the spread on the road. Big spread here. Michigan 16-4 in their last 20, 4-1 in their last 5. I think this is going to be a lot closer game than people think. Rutgers have been a surprise here, 3-0. They've actually looked really good here. I do like Michigan to win this game. They're definitely the better team, but 20.5 points, I think it's a lot closer in this game. I think I'm going to buy a point, get Rutgers at 21.5. We'll take Rutgers plus the points here, but I do like Michigan for the moneyline parlays. Next matchup, we have Texas A&M versus the Arkansas Razorbacks. Texas A&M opening up as 5.5-point favorites with the over-under at 47. You can get A&M on the money line at minus 195. Arkansas plus 180. A&M coming off that 34-0 win against New Mexico. And then Arkansas coming off that 45-10 win over Georgia Southern. A&M on a 10-game winning streak right now. 9-0 against Arkansas. Kind of a crazy stat. Arkansas 12-3 covering the spread in their last 15. Going to be a battle here. I like Arkansas plus the points here. They've just looked better. A&M, they're coming off that 34-0 win, but I just think they've been very questionable to start the season, especially against that Colorado game. They really didn't look that good. Arkansas is playing with a lot of momentum here. Give me Arkansas plus 5.5 in this matchup. Next matchup, we have Georgia State versus Auburn. Auburn opening up as the favorite at minus 27 with the over-under at 57. You can get Auburn on the money line at minus 4,000. Georgia State plus 1750. Georgia State coming off that 20-7 win over Charlotte. And then Auburn coming off that tough loss against Penn State, 28-20 here. Pretty simple here. This is going to be a get-right game for Auburn. They should be able to run it up on this Georgia State team after that loss. Take out their frustrations on this Georgia State team. Give me Auburn minus 27, and we'll add them to the moneyline parlays. The next matchup, we have UCLA versus Stanford. UCLA opening up as 4-point favorites with the over-under at 59.5. You can get UCLA on the money line at minus 180, Stanford plus 165. UCLA coming off that 40-37 loss against Fresno State. Tough loss for them. Stanford coming off that 41-23 win over Vanderbilt. California, they have struggled against Stanford. 2-10 covering the spread in their last 13 against Stanford. 1-12 against Stanford. That's kind of a crazy stat to me. Stanford 6-1 in their last 7 here. I like UCLA here. Those are the stats. Stanford has been dominant against UCLA, but UCLA can't afford another loss right now. They can't. I think Chip Kelly will have this team ready to go here. I like UCLA and the small spread -4. Gonna roll with UCLA. All right, next matchup, we have Kansas State versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State opening up as 5.5-point favorites with the over-under at 47. You can get Oklahoma State on the money line at -210. Kansas State plus 195. Kansas State coming off that 38-17 win over Nevada. Oklahoma State coming off a 21-20 win over Boise. Oklahoma State has not scored more than 30 points so far this season, yet they're 3-0. Kansas State's actually looked really good here. Kansas State's been pretty good covering the spread against Oklahoma State. 8-2 covering against Oklahoma State here. I just think 5.5 points is too much for this Oklahoma State team, struggling to barely get even 25 points on the board here. I think it's going to be a battle. 2 3-0 teams here. Give me Kansas State plus 5.5. Next matchup, we have Nebraska versus Michigan State. Michigan State opening up as 5-point favorites with the over-under at 52.5. You can get Michigan State on the money line at -190. Nebraska plus 170. Nebraska coming off that 23-16 loss against Oklahoma. Then Michigan State coming off that big win against Miami, 38-17. Nebraska, they looked really good against Michigan State here. 7-2 in their last 9. 8-1 covering against Michigan State. This is a different Michigan State. This Michigan State team looks to be the real deal. I mean, they're 3-0. They look dominant. Defense looks great. Been able to run the ball really good here. Only a 5-point spread. I just think Michigan State's the much better team in this matchup. Give me Michigan State here. Next matchup, we have Tennessee versus Florida. Florida opening up as 19-point favorites with the over-under at 64. You can get Florida on the money line at -1100. Tennessee plus 810. Tennessee coming off a 56-0 win over Tennessee Tech. Florida coming off that devastating loss to Alabama, 31-29. They played them very good. Tennessee 3-8 in their last 11. 1-5 against Florida. They have not been able to play good against Florida here. Florida 8-0 at home against Tennessee. 19 points does seem a lot, but it's just going to be tough for this Tennessee team here to score. Give me Florida. I do like Florida more as a money line play to add them to the parlays, but we'll take Florida -19. I just don't trust Tennessee. It's going to be tough for them. Give me Florida in this matchup. Next matchup, we have Akron versus Ohio State. Ohio State opening up as the favorite at -48.5. With the over-under at 66.5. There's no money line here because Ohio State's going to be probably -10,000 or something crazy. Ohio State is going to be without the starting quarterback Stroud, so we'll see how much that affects their offense. I still feel like they're going to be able to score and run all over this Akron team. Akron coming off a 35-14 win over Bryant. Then Ohio State coming off a 41-20 win over Tulsa. Going to be the get-right game for Ohio State here to beat up on this Akron team. 48.5 points. I mean, man, that's a lot. That's a big number there. But, there's no value in this game. That's probably a game to stay away from. It's a big number. If you take Akron plus 48.5, you're going to be sweating because they're not going to be able to score at all. You're hoping they can sneak a touchdown or a field goal in. Give me Ohio State minus 48.5. I don't love it, but this could easily be a game where they win like 66-7. You're going to be sweating it if you pick Akron here. Next matchup, we have North Carolina versus Georgia Tech. North Carolina opening up as the favorites. 13.5 point favorites with the over-under at 65. You can get North Carolina on the money line at minus 530. Georgia Tech plus 445. North Carolina coming off a 59-39 win over Virginia. Then Georgia Tech coming off, a game there that kept it close against Clemson, losing it 14-8. They definitely battled in that game there. North Carolina 13-5 in their last 18. 4-2 covering against Georgia Tech here. Georgia Tech, 1-4 in their last 5. Yeah, only a 2 touchdown spread here for North Carolina. Give me North Carolina on the money line, and I'll take them minus 13.5 against this Georgia Tech team. All right, next matchup we have Southern Miss versus Alabama. Bama opening up as 45.5 point favorites with the over/under at 58.5. No money line because Bama's probably going to be just an insane money line. Southern Miss coming off a 21-9 loss against Troy. Bama coming off that tough game against Florida, winning 31-29. That was definitely their first test of the season. Southern Miss 0-7 against Bama. Look, this is the cupcake game for Bama. They should be able to run it up on the Southern Miss team. Give me Bama minus 45.5. Look for them to put a lot of points on the board against the Southern Miss team. Next matchup, we have West Virginia versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma opening up as the favorite, 17-point favorite with the over-under at 56. You can get Oklahoma on the money line at minus 850. West Virginia plus 655. West Virginia coming off that 27-21 win over Virginia Tech. Looked really good in that game. Oklahoma, tough game for Oklahoma, coming off that 23-16 win against Nebraska. Pretty close there. West Virginia, they've struggled against Oklahoma. 0-8 against Oklahoma. 0-5 covering against Oklahoma. Oklahoma on a 10-game win streak. 7-0 at home. I just think 17 points, man, I think it's a lot. West Virginia looked good last week. I think they're going to be able to throw on this Oklahoma team. Nebraska, kept it down to the wire last week. I like West Virginia plus 17. I just think that's a lot of points coming off that Virginia Tech game win where they looked really good. Oklahoma kind of struggled last game. I do like Oklahoma to win this matchup, but I'll take West Virginia plus the points here. Next matchup, we have USF versus BYU. BYU opening up as 23.5 point favorites with the over-under at 54. You can get BYU on the money line at minus 2,100. USF plus 1270. USF coming off a 38-17 win over FAMU. BYU coming off a 27-17 win over Arizona State. Keep this one pretty simple. Love BYU. They should be able to destroy this USF team. 23.5 points doesn't seem like too much. Give me BYU in this matchup. Next matchup, we have the Arizona Wildcats versus the Oregon Ducks. Oregon opening up as the favorite at minus 28.5 with the over-under at 58. You can get Oregon on the money line at minus 5,500. Arizona plus 2,700. Arizona coming off a 21-19 loss over Northern Arizona. Oregon coming off a 48-7 win over Stony Brook. Oregon should be able to run it up on this Arizona team is very bad. They should be, 4 touchdowns. I think definitely buy a point. Get it at least 27.5. So that way it's 4 scores instead of them having to score 5 times. Go ahead and buy that point. It'll be worth it. And then, give me Oregon here. All All right, and then these last 4 matchups, they aren't ranked, or they aren't top 25 teams, but they're 4 interesting matchups with good teams that are definitely worth betting on here. First matchup, we have the LSU Tigers versus the Mississippi State Bulldogs. LSU opening up as 2.5-point favorites with the over-under at 56. You can get LSU on the money line at -125, Mississippi State plus 110. LSU coming off that 49-21 win over Central Michigan, and then Mississippi State coming off that 31-29 loss over Memphis. LSU 9-1 against Mississippi State on the road, 17-3 straight up against Mississippi State. Mississippi State 4-1 in their last 5 here. Just 1-9 at home against LSU. Such a small spread. I think LSU is the better team here. I'm going to take LSU on the money line and -2.5. Next matchup, we have the Texas Tech Red Raiders versus the Texas Longhorns. Texas opening up as 9-point favorites with the over-under at 62. You can get Texas on the money line at -360, Texas Tech plus 300. Texas Tech coming off a 54-21 win over FIU. Texas coming off a 58-0 win over Rice. Looked really good in that game here. Texas Tech, they've struggled against Texas, just 3-8 covering the spread against Texas, 3-15 against Texas, 0-11 on the road. They have not looked good against Texas here. Texas 4-1 in their last 5, 4-1 covering the spread. I like Texas in this matchup, more on the money line. I don't hate a -9 here. Texas Tech, 3-0, been pretty good. I just think that Texas defense is going to be a hard time for Texas Tech here. Give me Texas, and we'll take Texas -9 as well. Next matchup, we have the Louisville Cardinals versus the Florida State Seminoles. Louisville opening up as 1.5-point favorites with the over-under at 61. You can get Louisville on the money line at -119, Florida State plus 105 with the over-under at 61. Louisville coming off a 42-35 win over UCF, a very impressive UCF win they had. FSU, been embarrassing this season, coming off a 35-14 loss against Wake Forest. Then that 20-17 loss against Jacksonville State. Taking Louisville here, -1.5 against the 0-3 Seminoles. Seminoles just don't have it. They just, it's kind of sad. They just had pretty high expectations. They are not living up to it here. I'm going to take Louisville in this matchup. And then the last matchup, we have Oregon State versus USC. USC opening up as 11-point favorites with the over-under at 62. You can get USC on the money line at -415, Oregon State plus 350. Oregon State coming off a 42-0 win over Idaho. And then USC coming off a 45-14 win over Washington State. Oregon State, they've struggled against USC, 0-10 against USC, 0-5 on the road. Just 1-5 against USC here. USC 10-0 at home against Oregon State. I think this is going to be a closer game. Oregon State's actually been pretty solid this season. They're 2-1. They've actually looked really good. USC coaching changes. 2-1. That loss they had kind of hurt. So don't know where their head's at. I think 11 points. I think it's a sneaky cover here for Oregon State, and I'm going to take Oregon State plus the points. And that's going to be it for the video. Good luck with your picks and parlays on Saturday, guys, and I'll see you guys Sunday. Have a good one.